Hi, Pooch. Today, due to my mother's idea, I have decided that I'm going to start recording lucid dreams that I've had. Currently, I remember 2 of the lucid dreams that I've had in my life. I'll start with the first one from a long time ago. There wasn't much story to this one. At that point, I lived in a different house than where I currently do, and I walked to school, to elementary school. This dream took place on a walk back home from school with me and my sister. It was the first road that we would normally cross to get home, but it was very busy. There were a lot of cars. They were very fast, too. It wasn't a highway. I can't explain exactly why. But I was young, and I asked my sister how we should get across. I was scared, honestly. She told me that we could just fly over, and she herself flew over. At this point, I started realizing that this was a dream. But I didn't know exactly what a lucid dream was at this point, so, well, I really didn't think much of it. I figured I could try to take advantage of this, so I tried to fly over the road myself. Because it was a dream. The problem was I wasn't good at flying. I glided a little bit. I was pretty high in the air at first, but I kept falling down, and eventually I landed on the middle of the road. At this point, the cars mostly stopped coming. There were a few every now and again, but overall they kind of just stopped. There were no cars in sight. And I kept trying to fly over, instead of just walking. For some reason, I didn't feel safe on the road. So I just kept flying, even though it was putting myself in more danger. Walking across would have been faster. I don't know why, but I guess I just wanted to fly. My next lucid dream, it happened last night, sorry. This dream is kind of hard to explain and is quite complicated. The first part took place on a mountain with my sister, me, and a few of my sister's friends that I don't know. I've never met them. But in this dream, they seem quite close with my sister. So I went along with the dream. At this point, it was just a regular dream, I think. So I'm not sure how this works, but because we were so high up, camping out on a mountain, playing games, for some reason, the birds that would fly past were super slow. They were in slow motion. The crow flew past us, and my sister and her friends, we were starting to bully the crow because it was so slow they could take advantage of it. Eventually, though, I got my hands on the crow, and I released it. I set it free. At this point, it went back to its normal speed, and it landed somewhere. At this point, it looked like a bald eagle. I'm pretty sure it was a bald eagle. It looked at me, and it nodded. I nodded and waved back. And that's when the first part of that dream ended. The next thing I knew, I was playing some sort of horror game, as far as I can tell. That's what I heard. I never found out why it was a horror game. The idea was that your computer screen was covered in tiles. and they were gray tiles. Sometimes these tiles would turn red. They would come in different shapes and sizes, but you had to find the right one and click on it in order to prevent yourself from losing. Somehow people started to find a strategy to this, despite there being really no way. It was entirely random. I myself never figured out this strategy. And if I remember correctly, from sheer luck, I did somehow manage to get the high score out of everybody there. And that's when, for some reason, the game changed. I think this is when it became a lucid dream. Shortly, yeah, it became a lucid dream, like, in this next part of the story, where, for some reason, I was in the game myself, and I could move around. I don't remember much of it, but me and everybody we were exploring it, going out of bounds, stuff like that. I don't exactly remember what happened. This is the foggiest part of the dream, but one part that I do remember is that I somehow found a way to time travel, which is quite interesting. And that's when the third part of the dream ended. And then I was at a house for the fourth part. I don't know what house it was. It's not any house that I can remember being at or living at. But for some reason, I was in a costume, and there were two kids and their father. The kids started bullying me because of my costume, and I told them off. They didn't take this too well, and they got their father involved. And at this point, I decided to try flying. So I did. I glided in the air a little bit, and this time I was able to keep myself afloat. I didn't fall down. And I started flying around. I learned how to maneuver my flight path, stuff like that. And I managed to scare them off. Perhaps they thought that I was some sort of god. I think I might have pretended to be a god at one point, but I can't honestly remember. The way I was flying, though, was unique. When I glided before, there was no way to tell that I was gliding. It just happened. There was no flight path. I didn't have any wings, no winds I could feel. This time it was different. There was a purple energy emitting from me, and I don't know how this fits in with flight, but there was a purple energy keeping me flying. And that is when the dream ended. I remember the first time I had a lucid dream, I looked it up, and I found out what it was, so I made a promise to myself that after I would learn how to fly and sort of have it become natural to me, I would move on to something more complicated. And I was thinking perhaps making a mountain would be my next goal after I managed to successfully fly and do it very easily. As of currently, I'm not going to move on to that goal just yet because I can fly, but it still uses quite a bit of effort on my part, and quite a bit of focus as well. So, I will not move on to making mountains next. I will continue practicing on flying. Once I have successfully, mostly mastered how to fly, I guess mastered isn't exactly the right word, but once I learn how to fly easily, I will move on to making mountains, and the first step, I believe, would be summoning rocks, small rocks, or maybe manipulating them, like pulling them out of the ground. Then move on to bigger and bigger rocks, eventually getting to boulders. Then I would try to combine them together, fusing them together to create an even bigger rock, and then fusing them onto the ground and growing some grass over it, making a small hill, and work my way up from that. Bigger and bigger hills with trees and grass, and eventually maybe a mountain with a forest and a snow-covered peak. That is my future plan, and for right now, that is all. Goodbye.